15 amazing facts in Japan. Number 10. Gifts that are forbidden to give to Japanese people. Love giving gifts. This is considered an indispensable ritual in their daily life. In an average year, there are about 70 occasions when Japanese people give gifts to each other. Some important occasions include New Year's Day, New Year gifts, Father's Day, Mother's Day, promotions, birthdays, and other events such as weddings. Good news about the family: welcoming new members, admission ceremonies, graduations, coming of age, welcoming a new home, and visiting the sick. It seems that because there are so many occasions to give gifts, they also have many rules for doing this, especially regulations about gifts that should not be given. First, absolutely avoid giving gifts related to the numbers 4 and 9. The reason for this is, as we just said, these are two numbers that Japanese people consider very taboo. Next, you should not give a Japanese person a hair comb because the word comb in Japanese is kushi, which is a homophone with the word kushi, meaning suffering or death. Combining these, it adds up to misfortune. In addition, you should not give pictures of foxes, glassware, or cutlery. Gifts shaped like a fox are avoided because this animal symbolizes greed and cunning. Similarly, items made of glass or fragile materials should be avoided because they are believed to bring bad luck in relationships. Sharp items such as cutlery are also not appropriate as they are believed to sever relationships. Most importantly, you cannot give chrysanthemums or tea flowers. If you have to give flowers to Japanese people, you should avoid chrysanthemums and tea flowers because these are used for funerals in Japan. Intentionally giving these flowers as gifts may cause offense as it can be interpreted as cursing them and their family. Number 9. Don't sit cross-legged. In most countries, sitting cross-legged is very normal. Once again, the Japanese have their own peculiarities when it comes to banning this style of sitting. Of course, the Japanese government does not prohibit it, but if you sit this way when you come to Japan, you will be seen as rude and disrespectful. In Japanese culture, there is a particular emphasis on respecting others, especially in public spaces or during meetings. Sitting cross-legged can be considered impolite because it may cause discomfort or annoyance. Japanese people think that this sitting position is provocative and extremely rude. They believe only cheap prostitutes sit in such a way to attract customers. When coming to Japan, instead of sitting cross-legged, adopt the Caesar style sitting on your knees, a traditional Japanese way of sitting that promotes a neat posture. Number 8. Do not give up seats to the elderly on the bus. A country famous for its politeness and many noble rules, but has a paradoxical rule of not giving up seats to the elderly. Could it be that the Japanese are just a bunch of fake people? Japanese people don't fake it. They really do it for a good reason. In Japan today, public transportation always has priority compartments for the elderly, pregnant women, children, and people with disabilities. If this row of seats is full, the next person will have to stand. Of course, it is uncomfortable for a young person to see an older person standing on a bus, but they cannot do anything else because the older person themselves may not need their help. Giving up your seat is a very normal thing in many parts of the world, but in Japan, this can make them feel uncomfortable. In Japan, people always consider everyone in society to be equal, meaning if you arrive first, you will get a seat. The person who comes after will stand. No one would complain about why a man doesn't give up his seat for a woman or why healthy young people don't give up their seats to the elderly. When you come to Japan, if you really want to give your seat to someone, stand up, pretend to get off at the station, or change to another line. Then the Japanese will sit down comfortably, and they won't have to think about you giving up your seat for them. Number 7. Smoking outdoors is prohibited. This is one of the most controversial regulations in Japan, both reasonable and unreasonable. Since 2018, Japan has introduced a new law prohibiting smoking in public places. The law aims to prevent the dangers of passive smoking and applies to schools, hospitals, government agencies, and local authorities. Agencies that allow smoking will be fined an amount equivalent to forced 600 urset. Individuals who break the law will be forced to pay up to 700 urset if they smoke in the wrong place, despite warnings. At the same time, the law also designates places specifically reserved for outdoor smoking. Despite bringing great benefits to the community, it is difficult to understand why the Japanese government still allows smoking in restaurants, bars, and other crowded places. This causes great discomfort to the Japanese people. If smoking is to be banned, it should be completely banned. Otherwise, it should be allowed as before, allowing smoking outdoors, because at least the amount of air circulating in the streets would be reduced, diluting cigarette smoke more effectively than the stuffy air in restaurants. Number 6. Avoid touching in Japan. Touching another person without their consent is rude. This is the minimum courtesy in Japanese culture. Therefore, each person here respects the personal space of others. If you visit Japan, avoid touching people. Even shaking hands is not recommended in this country. Japanese people believe that shaking hands is quite awkward and impolite. Instead, they bow at an angle of about 90 to show politeness and respect to the other person. When meeting someone of high status or an elderly person, bowing deeply will help them feel respected. Kissing in public is also considered disrespectful in Japan. Before 1945, it was considered a violation of public order and punishable by imprisonment. Before and after World War II, cultural attitudes and legal regulations in Japan underwent many changes. The ban on kissing in public can be understood in the context of Asian culture, where public displays of affection are less accepted than in many Western countries. However, over time, many of these regulations have become more flexible or are no longer as strictly enforced as before. Currently, kissing in public is no longer illegal in Japan. However, there is still cultural restraint and respect when showing affection in front of others in public spaces. Number 5. Do not dirty the rice. Japan is a country famous for its strict rules at the dinner table. From clearly regulated practices like not passing food with chopsticks or using chopsticks to point at others, to unspoken principles that must always be implicitly understood to avoid appearing clumsy, ignorant, or rude in the eyes of those around you. But it doesn't stop there. Even seemingly normal things are noticed and quietly evaluated by Japanese people. For example, whether you should pick up food and put it on white rice in a bowl before eating. Yes, you heard that right. Just picking up food and putting it straight into your mouth can be enough to make people judge you. It's frustrating when you have to pay attention to so many details while eating. So, how can you eat well? Yet, this trivial issue is very important and has sparked heated debate among the Japanese people. One side advocates putting food on rice before eating, while the other strongly opposes this way of eating, arguing it diminishes the flavor of each dish and dirties the rice. This is why most Japanese people dislike this practice. Therefore, if you have the opportunity to dine in Japan, it's best not to put food on top of the rice. Number 4. Do not wear shoes into the house. When you wear shoes or slippers inside a house or room, Japanese people will judge you as disrespectful. So, take off your shoes or slippers in front of the door and wear your own pair of slippers indoors. Alternatively, you can wear socks or go barefoot. The rule of changing slippers before entering the house has been around for about 2,000 years. Due to the hot and humid weather in the summer, traditional Japanese houses often have floors elevated above the ground to prevent moisture and allow cool air to circulate beneath, helping to reduce heat. Furthermore, tatami mats cover almost the entire floor in traditional houses. Wearing shoes on tatami mats would be unhygienic and could damage them. In her book, The Working Culture Within Japan, first published in 1984, sociologist N. She emphasized the importance of internal space called ochai, or ie. The inside of the house is considered a clean, private place compared to the dusty and chaotic outside. Therefore, most traditional houses have a separate entrance hall between these two spaces, a place to change shoes into slippers. In addition to cleanliness reasons, removing shoes is also considered a sign of respect when entering someone's home or place of business. While this way of thinking is not as strictly followed in modern life, many people still pay attention to it. Therefore, before entering a door, Japanese people often ask the homeowner or business owner to confirm whether they should wear their outside shoes inside or not. Number 3. Do not eat while walking. A famous British YouTuber named Jack recounted his shocking experience while traveling to Japan. As he walked down the street enjoying oki Japanese dumplings, he suddenly noticed unsympathetic looks from people walking nearby. 2 older men even cursed at him and chased him away. Jack was extremely confused by this situation, and after finding out the reason, he became even more bewildered. In fact, the unpleasant attitude he encountered was simply because he was eating while walking, a very normal action in most countries around the world, but considered highly inappropriate in Japan. In Japan, people do not eat or drink while walking. They believe that eating while moving, whether on the street or on the subway, can disturb others due to the smell of food and the noise of chewing. If you intentionally eat on the street in Japan, you may be scolded by the elderly or receive unsympathetic looks from others. Number 2. Using chopsticks to pick up food for others. The Japanese are truly among the most sensitive people in the world. They are very sensitive to tattoos, touching, and even basic acts of affection such as picking up food for someone else to eat, which is prohibited in Japan. People often use chopsticks to pass the remaining bones of the deceased during cremation. Therefore, using chopsticks to pass food to others is considered impolite, akin to cursing the person who receives the food. Inserting chopsticks into a bowl of rice is also strictly prohibited. Influenced by ideas from Confucianism and Buddhism, sticking chopsticks into a bowl of rice resembles burning incense for the deceased. If you do this during a meal, you may be immediately asked to leave the house and face severe humiliation. Advice for anyone visiting Japan is to use chopsticks only for eating. Refrain from doing anything else with them if you wish to avoid trouble with the locals. Number 1. Whistling at night. In Japan, children are often warned by adults not to whistle at night. Many believe this is simply a method to scare children into sleeping quietly without making noise. Additionally, there are various cultural explanations for this taboo. There are folktales linking whistling at night to snakes, as snakes are believed to be attracted to whistling sounds. For instance, a short story recounts a man with cruel intentions who used whistling to control a poisonous snake to harm others at night. This association with snakes makes whistling at night unsettling. Furthermore, there is a belief that whistling at night can attract thieves, as historically thieves used whistles to signal each other. Whistling at night may lead villagers to mistake you for an accomplice of thieves. Thank you for watching our video about 15 forbidden things in Japan. Despite being a developed country, Japan still maintains many unique, strict, and sometimes discriminatory customs. Let's continue exploring and learning about the mysteries hidden within the culture and history of every country. Don't forget to like and subscribe to discover more content together in the future. Thank you, and see you on your next adventures.